on a shirt. I have both ADHD and autism. Anyway, what I was saying was in Nepal a few days ago, there is a sudden insurrection and uprising within Gen Z, specifically a large predominant majority of Gen Z, because of the ban on social media. That is a good thing. Yes, you should uprise and fight back against things like banning social media. You know, it's the whole idea behind whenever there's no bread and there's no circuses, you start to have problems. But the thing with that is that there seems to be a lot of possibilities and hallmarks that this is going to be a color revolution. Not to say that the CIA is going to swoop in and co-opt it or anything, but it's very possible. But the fact is that this is only going to get concessions. This is only going to get something very bare minimum for the people and the proletariat within Nepal, because there is no true material backing and help from leftist organizing so that there's class consciousness of what they are actually uprising and fighting against. Yes, the idea of fighting against this, like, this ban is a good thing, but there needs to be more. There needs to be more to it than just that. But that is what is so important about proper protesting, because whenever you protest, especially today under neoliberalism, it becomes performative. It is designated in certain spots because of the First Amendment and so on. But protests are not just supposed to be something that you're allowed to do. It's something that actually causes change. But under the First Amendment, over 300 years of having it be in place of freedom of speech and freedom of gather and freedom of protest, all it has become is a liberal vent, right? It is only you venting your emotions. There is no material backing to these things and to these morals, right? And that becomes a problem. Because one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that to only base protest on emotions and moralisms and so on, being like, oh, Trump bad, Trump blah, 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 right? It doesn't work. It doesn't really gain any material benefit to the proletariat. But if you have those emotions be politically backed and materially backed, then it becomes starting to tell a story. You're starting to tell a narrative and tell the world something, and that needs to be obtained. That needs to be used. But a lot of leftists don't, and even proper socialist states don't seem to properly understand that. They stop at culture, but then they don't keep going. They don't keep going with the grassroots of, you know, telling the world a certain thing. Because emotions and morals are good. We need to have those. Those are parts of the human what Marx labeled as the material conditions, but then also the subjectiveness of human consciousness. And we need to understand how to utilize that and how to properly weaponize that. Because whenever you properly utilize and weaponize that, the material conditions can actually be helped and benefited, because now your emotions are politically backed. Now it's not just, oh, I hate Trump because he's a pedophile. It's now, I hate Trump because he's a pedophile, but also he's exploiting me. He's exploiting our labor. He is the one that is, like, not personally, but he is the head of a bourgeois state that is consistently extracting my labor, right? The more complicated that emotion gets, the stronger it gets, right? I talked about this once before, where whenever you see an animal and they have a dead child in front of them, let's take a really intelligent animal like an elephant. They will mourn the death of their child. But if they watched a hunter kill their child, they will have a vendetta against them. They have something to back it. There's that psychology there of backing it, of making that emotion of having sadness and anger, of wanting to fight back against something even more strong. And that's what's needed. That is what the proletariat needs. Let's see. What else? Yeah, that's the big crux of the issue is that you just need to like properly teach things, but you can't just try. A lot of leftists seem to be like, yes, use your anger and protest, and then hold up the sign that says "Down with the bourgeois state," but they need to label things properly. You need to say Trump is capitalism. Trump is capitalism. Capitalism is bad, right? Have small little slogans that can fit on a protest sign and on a picket that can actually say something. That doesn't just say Trump bad, it says Trump is a fucking vampire. Trump is sucking the blood from us. Trump, like, you need to have it sound grandiose because it will light the imaginations of the people you're fighting on fire, but it has to be materially backed. Like, even something like saying capitalism is vampirism, right, is very simple, right? It is very direct. It is something that is ideologically and symbolically direct to people, especially in Western countries, because vampirism is something that is in a lot of media, right? Especially within media that is constantly calling out oligarchical and bourgeois states. So if you use that, you weaponize that culture, you start to use and weaponize the imagination of the masses to then have that continue. You can then use that euphemism even further. Yeah, you can say that, or you can say something very grand and say, we will stake the bourgeoisie and bring them into the sun and rise from their ashes and take back what is ours, what they took, right? Something very direct, something very poetic that is powerful and can actually light the imaginations of the proletariat on fire. Not in an adventurous sense, because because in that sense it becomes LARPing. It's just, oh, we're vampire hunters and so on. But if you materially back it, if you say that the bourgeoisie are not just capitalism, but are also and so on and so forth, and politically label them, but also then attach another fictitious label to them that properly frames what they are, you can properly use the minds, not just the hearts. You can use the soul, but not just the hearts and minds of them materially. And that's what's needed in Nepal, but is not properly happening because we see that in Nepal specifically, it seems to be just outburst, right? It's just an explosion. It's not like a fucking properly guided spew of flame to burn down anything, right? And now it's becoming a thing where even reactionaries are instinctually co-opting the movement because reactionaryism fundamentally works by using emotion without material backing to attack things around it that it doesn't understand and react against it. And now they're tearing down the Communist Party's or not the ruling Communist Party, but one of the communist organizations that is in within Nepal and its parliament, and tearing down the hammer and sickle.